Hey everybody, Mark Marshall here. Today we're going to try to recreate a vintage drum sound from a Bill Withers recording using BFD3 drums. Now, let's listen to a little bit of James Gadsden's groove on this song called Kissing My Love. Alright, so one of the big tricks to creating this sound is that in this era they didn't really use a lot of microphones. Like today's standards, everybody mics every tom, and they have more than one mic on the snare and more than one mic on the bass drum. But this stuff is really minimal. And we're going to open up BFD3 and look at ways that we can create this minimalistic sound. We're going to open up BFD3 and we're going to check out a loop that I've created very quickly to mimic this sound. It's not exactly locked. It would take a little while to really nail down that James Gadsden groove that he's known for. But this gets us in the ballpark, and we can kind of discuss how to do some tricks in BFD. Let's check out the groove I created. Okay, something really special that happens with James Gadsden on that hi-hat that is just really so hard to get in with programming. It can be done. And I'm going to open up BFD3 here and let's check out what's going on. When you first open it up, this is very much like what you're going to see. I have a kit selected over here. Now I pre-made a preset so that it would just speed things along a little bit. And over here is where you select the drums. And you can hear the bass drum that I selected, and the hi-hat. And what I did is I went over to the drum section, and I selected, I went through all the hi-hats and found the one that really I thought worked best. Now here's a cool tip. So if you hold Option and you click over here to audition the sound, depending on how far left or how far right you click, it uses different velocity. So you can get an idea of what that cymbal would sound like at the velocity the drummer is going to be playing at. So once I did that for each of these, the snare drum I picked out a Mapex Black Panther, and then for the bass drum I picked a 1970 Electric stainless steel kick. So I thought just on the regular audition it would get me the closest, and I could tweak from there. Let's look at the bass drum real quick. So I picked the bass drum. I knew that was going to get me there, so I went over to the right here, and you see where it says Tech and Model. Now this is going to give me some really powerful options when it comes to trying to nail this drum sound from this era. One of them is in the tuning. Now I was going back and forth and A-Bing with the Bill Withers tune a little bit to try to kind of get it as close to pitch and in that range as possible. And it's very sensitive, so you don't have to move it very much to make a big difference. Now over here, the model. This is great because this damping knob is going to be a really big assistance in the sound. And you see I have it pushed up pretty high because I want that bass drum to be pretty dead when it's playing. All the drums are very muted on this. In fact, the snare drum probably has a wallet or something on it to just get that real kind of dead, quick attack sound. We don't really have that option in here, so on the snare drum I have the damping all the way up. Now you can have any drum selected and adjust the tech and model for each of those drums or cymbals, right? So I could affect the damping or the tuning on the cymbals, which I definitely did with the hi-hat to try to get it closer to that James Gadsden sound. Down here at the bottom, you're going to see we have all these faders for the individual drums, the sum of drums, and all the microphones, particularly like overhead, rooms, and ambient mics. This is where a big portion of the action is going to happen. Now, I start off by muting all of them. A lot of the sound of the drums in this Bill Withers recording is actually coming from the overheads. So I like to start there and get that happening. we go. That's most of the work done right there. I did this just by tuning the drums and the hi-hat. So now that I'm there, I'm going to go back and I remember which ones I had up, because you'll see that the faders are up. I pulled all the other ones I wasn't using down. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of the kick. I'm just doing this just to get a little bit more of a clearer attack on the bass drum. And the same thing for the snare drum. And the hi-hat. Made a big difference with the hi-hat there, right? It definitely brought it in a lot. Okay, that's everything as far as what mics and faders I'm using. You'll notice that I'm not using any other microphones. It's just that overhead mic. Sounds like it's in a small, dead room, right? Okay, let's check out this effects area, which is right next to faders here. Now I see every one of these tracks being played, and I also see the slots for all the plugins that we could use to affect the sound within BFD3. On the bass drum, I don't really have anything except for on the master channel for the bass drum. There's a little bit of EQ going on here. You'll notice that when you click on each of the instruments, it switches the view on top to show you what plugins are on that exact channel, the channel that's highlighted. Now, in one of these snare drums, you'll see that I pulled out a lot of the high end. I was doing this all over the place for the sound, just to kind of get a little bit of that crispiness out of it. I definitely did it on the hi-hat too, pretty drastically, you'll notice. I'm going to select the overhead. In the mix, I noticed on the Bill Withers tune that there is a little bit of reverb on. It's unlike just the overall drums, but it's really tucked far in the back. So I wanted to recreate that. So I put a little bit of plate reverb on the master. And you'll notice that it's a very minimal amount. It's 5%, and I just adjusted the time to be 1.46 seconds. Very minimal. So just giving a little bit of a sustain on that snare drum, right? That's pretty much everything that I did inside of BFD. So let's get out of here and maybe look what I did on the individual channels for the drum. I'm in Logic here, and I'm on the channel, and you see I have some EQ going on here. And I just, again, I cut some of the high end, and I boosted some mids. When it's off, you hear it's a little crispy, right? Not exactly accurate to this era in time. Alright, this is just getting us there a little bit more. I'm trying to make it sound like tape, and maybe you have some tape emulation plugins that you could use, which would be really awesome. I also put a compressor on it, just to get a little bit more action out of it. That's pretty much everything I did to the track to kind of get it in that ballpark. Another trick that you can use is to use some overdrive on a drum channel to kind of get a little bit more of that saturation from tape. Just sounds pretty good. So right now I'm running some EQ, overdrive, and compression on the channel. like with everything, the groove really drives the sound. If you would spend some time with this and try to lock that groove in, you could totally get that soulful James Gadson kind of vibe in a song that maybe you're working on. You think that sound element would accompany it really nicely.